You're listening to Business Success in a Virtual World podcast. If you are a leader navigating these new immersive technologies, this is your definitive resource to understand the innovative power of XR, VR, and AR. I'm Tim Beharon, Chairman of Creative Strategies, and I'm joined by Barton Goldenberg, President of ISM Guide. In each episode, we navigate through new products, effective strategies, and highlight actual business case studies implementing extended reality into business processes. Our resource website now boasts over 300 case studies, 300 articles, and 100 videos presenting successful examples of businesses using these technology in field service, training, digital twins, customer service, in medical and manufacturing, and so much more. Check out the website at ismguide.com. Now, on to the next episode. This week, we're going to do a little bit of a deviation on our traditional focus on case studies, although we will discuss a particular example. But Barton and I, a few weeks ago, spent a couple of days at CES. And as those of you who are in the industry know, that CES is basically the gathering place for, in this case, 135,000 of our best friends to take a look at what's new in the world of technology, etc. I've been involved with CES in various positions, both as advisor and leadership over the years. In fact, this was my 49th CES. But we had the opportunity to actually do two significant sessions ourselves in the Metaverse track. And I did one that had the focus on the hardware, and then Barton did one focused on basically, which was and is the focus of this podcast, which has to do more of the case studies and the focus on the enterprise. So Barton, let's start with the panels that we both did and how yours evolved, and more specifically, what you guys covered.
Well, thanks, Tim. And what an experience to go to CES. Tim's been 49 years. I've only been 2 years. I had the blessing of having my son with me this year, my 25-year-old engineer son, and he was just completely impressed as well. But we both had great panels. I had, as Tim said, the business side, business success in a virtual world. And I had the chief technology and strategy officer from Siemens, a gentleman called Peter Kort. I had the assistant vice president for enterprise solutions and technology in Europe for HTC Vive, Thomas Dexmeyer. And I had Liz Hyman, the president and CEO of the XR Association here in Washington, D.C. So I had a powerhouse. There were two things I want to just mention from the panel. And by the way, both Tim and my panel are available through the CES site, and you can watch it. It's a video of the entire session. But two things from my panel. One, the question of whether metrics and ROI can be measured for an XR or a Metaverse investment. And the overwhelming response from the panel was yes. All panelists. Now, they all cited multiple studies over the last 12 to 24 months that really confirmed this. But the one that stuck out in my mind was one done this summer. I think it was in September, actually. Ernst Young and Nokia did a study of 800 business leaders, showing that companies in the Metaverse today have on average a decrease in capital expenditure resulting from being in the Metaverse of 15% and an average decrease in operating costs of 6%. Now, when you're in business, those are very significant numbers. And so that really draws your attention to the viability and the potential of the Metaverse. The maybe perhaps equally important, more important question I asked the panel was, how do they see XR Metaverse playing out over the next 12 months? And asked them to put their thought leadership hat on. So Peter from Siemens said that headsets will improve. He was very keen on the Apple Vision Pro. AI will speed up engineers' ability to make better decisions, leading to a lot more what-if scenario testing. And we'll see the integration more of the real world and the digital world, particularly as it refers to the factory floor and what he calls industrial metaverse. Liz came in from the XR Association and said we'll see the continued integration of AI with cloud computing and improved XR technology that will drive stronger enterprise and industrial metaverse applications. Not mentioned in a big way was the consumer applications. And Thomas from HTC Vive said this ability to interconnect networks to offload processing from the headsets is one very important thing that we're going to see over the next 12 months. And then an openness to access to the metaverse. It does not have to be 3D. It could be 2D. It could be on your tablet. It could be 3D. There's many ways of approaching it. So those were kind of the highlights of my panel, Tim, but I would encourage people to listen and watch the video of the session. How about yours?
Thank you. So my session was on the hardware per se. We were looking really at what we call the evolution of the new headsets at the hardware level, and then more specifically, how will these headsets impact the metaverse in the future? The whole concept of these headsets have been around for like 7 or 8 years now, since the original Oculus headset came out. On my panel, I had representatives from Qualcomm, Meta, HTC, and Lenovo. And the Qualcomm one was important because Qualcomm had just announced their Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 platform, which interestingly is being used by HTC, Lenovo, and Meta in their new headsets. And what Qualcomm showed was the new generation of their chip that allows for all kind of new functions and features in these next generation headsets. But what I found fascinating, because in one sense, I thought maybe this would be more of a battle of the bands like approach. My headset's better than your headset. But that wasn't what came about. It was more in the context of each of these players, Lenovo, HTC, and Meta, fundamentally agreeing that the next generation of these headsets are actually going to drive new applications, new functions, new capabilities that we haven't had now. And then I asked them about, Apple was not on the panel, but I said, what do you think about the Apple Vision Pro? What do you think about it and its competitive position? And every one of them were actually very complimentary. They believe that Apple actually will drive great interest in the metaverse in general, help define some of the new areas that's competitive that all of these guys will, work on in the same context. And it was not, and none of them were quote unquote fearful of Apple's entry into the space. In fact, they welcomed it. And they see it as another major step to making the metaverse a more viable solution, not only for enterprise, but eventually for consumers. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is all of them basically concluded that we are at early stages of the role of headsets in the metaverse. And they all pretty much said that the first generation of adoption is going to come through enterprise, especially through things like training, field service, etc. I just happened to write a new piece for Forbes this week where I talked about 3 technologies that are going to influence our computing world in the next 25 years. And AI is one, quantum computing is another, but the third one is the metaverse. But I broached it a little differently. I said, what I think we're going to see is historically now, we saw the computing world take us from analog to digital over the last 50 years. But I believe that what's going to happen in the next 25 years, and this is an underlying metaverse theme, we will go from 2D to 3D. I think computing is going to completely change from not only what we see today, but to what is evolving tomorrow from a 2D to a 3D model. So anyway, that was really cool. And both our sessions were really well attended. and we've got a lot of good commentary on it. Now, another thing that I've asked Barton to look at, and I'm going to address myself, is, all right, here we are in, I call it tech candy land. There's this amazing technology where you walk around the show, and it was funny because I was thinking, I have been doing this for 49 years. I was trying to think about how your son looked at it. His first time here, and he's an engineer, so he's already in the tech sector. But the whole thing of going to CES for the first time and it being even more, because I'm jaded at 49 years, I could sit there and say I see it all. The reality is I have not seen it all, which is why I continue to go. But what did you see that really struck you?
Yeah. So I just want to tell you, from the 25-year-old engineering perspective, I said to him, I'm thinking of booking for next year's CES. Any interest this year? And for all of us that have children that are 25 years old, they're not always jumping up and down to be with dad or mom. But let me tell you, I don't think I've ever seen him come back as quickly on a text and said, absolutely, I'm in. So that's how enthusiastic he was. But anyhow, here's what I saw when I was out there, Tim. And I want to kind of talk about it from some keynotes that I saw and some things that I saw on the floor. So the keynotes, 3 of them stuck out in my mind. One was CEO Doug McMillon from Walmart. He talked about, and this was really, they were excellent keynotes, an adaptive, seamless customer experience. So we went back to the customer and he based it on technology. And this is how he did it. And you'll see the metaverse fit. He talked about 3 stages that will drive customer experience. One is the discovery stage, where they discover what they want, and they're applying Gen AI search. They're applying something new called Shop with Friends, where you can show your friends online while you're shopping what it looks like on you. And they have another one called My Assistant Expansion, but making discovery easier using tools to get to the right products. Then they want to make the second part is purchase easier. And they do better and faster searching. They have this whole new elevated program on in-home replenishment of fridges and things like that. And a couple of other AI-powered exit experiences, all to do with purchasing ease. And the third one is delivery. And that was really based on the desire of the customer. And Walmart is launching an impressively large drone delivery service in Dallas, Texas this year that will deliver within 5 to 15 minutes within a radius of Dallas the products that you're asking for. So you think about Walmart as a great place, nice people, good prices, a great variety. But behind the scenes, this is a technology powerhouse driving adaptive, seamless customer experience through discovery, purchase, and delivery improvements. The second keynote was from Pat Gelsinger. He's the CEO of Intel. And what Pat said I thought was important is he said, nothing's going to hold back AI. But similar to the internet, AI will take 10 years before it really takes hold in the marketplace. So he said, we're really at the beginning. And the last one, which we're going to discuss later on, is the Siemens keynote out of Germany. And it was an absolutely fascinating keynote, but again, we'll come back to it. So let me talk very briefly about things I saw on the floor. And as Tim says, it's a candy shop. The big overall impression that I had is the AI's infiltration in every aspect of the technology, hardware, and software. I don't think there was a booth at CES this year that didn't have an AI component. So that's just the absolute beginning. And I'll come back to one of the panel that I saw. It was a Gen Z panel. And I've taken this story home to my family and to my friends. They asked the Gen Zer, last year at this time when you had to write a paper at the university, he was at university, Georgetown University or George Washington, did you and your friends talk about AI and how you can use it? Can you use it? And where are you today? And what the Gen Zer said to me, or it said to us, was, a year ago we were confused. Can we use it? Can we not use it? But we ended up figuring out. This year we don't even ask that question. Of course we're going to use it. And what's happened at his university is they have 3 rules. You can use it and you have to declare it. You don't have to use it. Is the second one. And if you do use it and don't declare it, you're dismissed from the university. So it's become a part of how we do business. And you'll hear that a little bit more on AI infiltration later. Okay, outrageous technologies. I broke it up into 3 observations. Outrageous technologies. And I don't want to steal the thunder because Tim's probably got some of these too, but it was the flying cars. They set the tone for the incredible innovation displayed at CES 2024. There was the Mercedes-Benz flying car. There was the Hyundai Motor Group's Advanced Air Mobility Supernatural SA2E EOVL. And then there was the Xpeng Aero HT car from China. And I want to talk to you about the one from China because that one blew my mind. So it's a Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer. It's got a low altitude air mobility explorer. That's what they call it. It's an electric car that can be driven and it flies like a quadcopter or a drone. It takes off and lands vertically. It has carbon fiber propellers. It seats 2 people and the side view mirrors don't exist. It's all done with cameras and the cameras feed right into the large dashboard of the screen that you see. In the drive car mode, the propellers fold up into the car rear like the trunk area. Steering wheel folds under the dash while in flight mode. A joystick is used while driving in the flight mode. And this is expected to be on the market in 2030 for a small price of $142,000. But what dollars US. What I thought was interesting though was we actually saw a video of it flying, taking off, and it was just fantastic. Okay, another thing was the Hyundai four-wheel drive car that allows you to come up to a parallel parking, and instead of backing in and turning your wheel, it slid all 4 wheels sideways right into the parking space. So you never had to parallel park. Just come up to the place, turn the all 4 wheels in the direction of the curb, and it'll just slide right in. Fantastic. Mitsubishi had an industrial zone, a drone, and we've seen lots of drones, but this one carried 500 pounds and could travel 600 miles. It just changes the whole landscape of what a drone will be. There was a Korean company called Modi Factory, it's part of a bigger company. And similar to the older days when we had a PC parts picker, remember you used to pick the parts, specify how the computer would be built, would tell you all the rules and what worked with what. This Modi does the same thing, but for the design and delivery of AI-driven printed circuit boards, or PCBs. So what they've done is they've built a virtual coding platform based on what the engineer wants to create on the printed circuit board. The software will tell the engineer what components are needed, what's compatible, what you have to add, and then will design the PCB layout. And this saves tens or hundreds of hours of design work for the engineer. It was outrageous. Then Hyundai had something called the Excite Solution construction equipment site. And this was a huge construction area completely run through AI and technology. So drones, cameras, vision centers gave an ability to do on-site data-enabled real-time monitoring and risk management of on-site equipment. If an equipment broke down, it would be automatically replaced and move it out of the way. But the entire construction site was run digitally from a panel. It was just amazing. And then I was very impressed with Japan's Mobin delivery cart that actually went up the stairs of an apartment. They showed it, went up the stairs and delivered it, ice cream or coffee or whatever, and came back down the stairs. And that was in use today. Those were the ones that I'll call those outrageous. The 2 fun technologies that I liked was the Suit X exoskeleton for workers. And this can help workers that have to lift heavy weights to really help them with the lifting. And then it's also of value for older people like Tim and I when we can't get off our chair properly, so we can put that on and it will jump us out of the chair. There was also drone soccer. That my son was completely turned on. There's now an FIDA, so the Federation of International Drone Soccer Association, and they have drones inside little soccer balls, and they fly like the Kiddish and Harry Potter. That was amazing as we saw that. And the last one I want to mention is just 2 memorable booths. Sony and Samsung always have an experiential booth, completely immersive experience, demonstrating new consumer technologies. You can even sit down and just sit on a VR PlayStation and in Sony's booth and just play games and relax. It was like you entered the world of Sony, you entered the world of Samsung. And the last thing, my observation was the Korean presence. When you went downstairs on the floor in the Venetian at the international booths, there were 7 Korean booths promoting incredibly innovative products. It even included a large booth sponsored by a Korean university, a Metaverse booth, where 10 innovative companies were sponsored by their local Korean government, meaning they paid these Gen Zs to come over and be there, and much more. So those are my impressions, Tim. I'm turning it back to you. I'm keen to hear what were yours.
Actually, now I'm really jealous because The one thing that was different between Barton's and mine is that he was able to be there more days than I, and secondly, he had more time on the show floor because because of all my commitments, I had very little time on the show floor, but in uh, I actually ended up with just a single focus, even though I did see some of the things that he mentioned. My focus really was on health and specifically the health products. There was three or four that really struck out for me. One was called BMO by Withings, and this is a device for home monitoring, health monitoring. It combines specialized sensors to turn their device into a powerful tool for monitoring heart and lung health. It is portable and smaller than a smartphone. It includes a thermometer, an electrocardiogram, an oximeter, and a stethoscope. And it's basically a home monitoring for, especially, I would say older people, but anyone that has any serious physical issues that need to be monitored by the doctor, and the doctors can't do it, unless they're in the hospital. The second one was a product from Dexcom called Stello. I've been a type 2 diabetic for 27 years, and I have to monitor my blood sugars constantly. I'm also insulin dependent, and so I use the Dexcom G7 CGM to help me determine my insulin dosage. But Dexcom has now launched a new product that should be available later this year called the Stello. It is also a CGM, but what's different with this design, it's designed for patients who don't need insulin. Type 2 diabetics account for 90% or more of the diabetics cases, and yet they don't have a clear idea of which foods spike their blood sugar and what to do about it. For someone with insulin, knowing their food sugars is a life and death issue. But for those not using insulin, learning about their food blood sugars and how certain foods impact their blood sugars is a health issue that can prevent them or help them prevent their diabetes from getting worse. That's a new product from them that will come out later this year. Then there's another one that's actually strictly a software solution that does a similar thing, which is called, from a company called January AI. And I've been actually testing this, and this is really fascinating. They have a database that maybe has over 100,000 foods or ingredients that when you put the name of the ingredient in, it tells you exactly how much sugar content, how many calories, how much fiber, etc. And it lets you know the value of the food you're eating and its potential impact on your blood sugars. And I find both these two really interesting, the Stello and January AI together, because you're starting to see the diabetic industry becoming more aggressive in dealing with preventing and especially focusing on managing diabetes, as opposed to you're already into stages like I am, where you have to take even more drastic measures. And then the third one, or the fourth one that I got to play with and used, was the Ultra Human Smart Ring. It's called the Ultra Human Ring Air. And it's the only smart ring that uses fighter jet titanium. And it monitors sleep, movement, recovery, nutrition, and many fitness tracking data points. It has a 6-axis motion sensor delivering accurate data and is water resistant at a depth of 330 feet. I'd be dead at 330 feet, but that's beside the point. I met with them in the show, and they let me test one of these during CES. And I actually found its sleep data better than the fitness tracker I also wore. And its step counter was more accurate. Now, having said that, I think next year I may put more time on the show floor to find out some of the gems that Barton had last year. So let's move to the Siemens case study, in a sense, and the focus that came out of Roland Busch's keynote. Barton?
Yeah. So I'll try to keep this short, Tim, to keep us on time. But Roland Bush is the CEO, was the absolute opening keynote at CES, and it was brilliant, simply brilliant. Now, you have to be careful. His entire focus was on the industrial metaverse. And to quote him, he said the industrial metaverse will transform everything. So the focus was industrial metaverse. But at the recently completed Siemens factory, they leveraged the industrial tools that they create, the industrial metaverse tools. Now they've achieved a 200% increase in manufacturing capacity, a 20% increase in productivity, and a 20% reduction in energy consumption. I'm going to tell you how this works. It's all with the digital twin. But I just want to tell you that they are monitoring very carefully the impact, and that's the reason they're getting so much demand for this offering. 3 building blocks for their industrial metaverse. They call it an accelerator platform. The first one I mentioned very briefly, it's the digital twin. What everybody knows, you take a real object, you're basically taking it and putting it into the metaverse in 3D. The beauty of what Siemens does is they connect the metaverse digital twin to the real factory shop floor machine, and they talk to each other. So you'll see how this works in a minute. So they see digital twin as the chief building block of the industrial metaverse. They're used to build airplanes and power grids and factories and cities, products, even the human heart. The second component of their metaverse, industrial metaverse platform, is what they call software-defined automation. And I've alluded again, but 1/3 of the factories worldwide run on Siemens, what they call programmer logical controllers, or PLCs. They sit on your machine and on a factory machine and monitor what's going on. So today, Siemens is able to mount hundreds of PLCs onto one computer rack, so you can really follow lots and lots of data coming from lots and lots of machines. And then controllers integrate directly with the digital twin to drive optimization, both of the digital twin in the metaverse, but then bring that right back down to the actual factory floor machinery. This is why, by the way, when you optimize in the metaverse, you can drive the type of numbers of productivity and so forth that Roland Bush spoke about at the beginning. The third component of their platform is data and AI. They made it a point that edge devices collect up to 2,000 terabytes of data per month in a highly automated factory, which is an enormous amount. AI accesses all the data. It recognizes patterns in the data. It sends relevant data to your LLM. And then after optimizing the digital twin, it allows you to communicate directly with your machines as if you were in a human, discussion mode. What he said is Gen AI is the single largest change in how we're going to interact with data, information, and each other since the very beginnings of the internet and the very beginnings of the browsers. Siemens is building this industrial metaverse platform through partnerships. They've all made the point, and by the way, Walmart did the same thing with vendors, that you have to do this through partnerships. No one company can handle it all. They have a partnership with Microsoft for their what they call industrial co-pilot offering. They have a partnership with AWS for what they call their low-code Mendix industrial metaverse platform, plug and play. They just created an agreement with Sony, develop Siemens' next generation of immersive technology immersive engineering that will drive the future of design and manufacturing to allow you to enter into the industrial metaverse easily. It's fantastic, this immersive engineering. It takes CAD to the whole next level. It's not CAD 2D, it's not CAD 3D. It's a whole new way of designing what's called immersive technology, and Siemens has the platform. Let me close by just mentioning a couple of quick examples. Siemens uses the industrial metaverse for things like Oracle Red Bull Formula One racing car, created a digital twin in the metaverse using Siemens technology, and they have real-time communication with the Formula One car on the racetrack, and they're tweaking the car during the actual Formula One event. Fantastic. Food powder optimization to address global food insecurity. So they take the food, they powderize it. They're doing that all in the digital, in the metaverse through the digital twins and so forth. And then they can bring powder anywhere in the world to help address food insecurity. Prothesis. They're doing a lot of work with prothesis in the digital twins to drive, the optimal prothesis and drive down costs ridiculously low for people that need these prothesis. And the last one I want to just say is the adaptive radiotherapy system that Siemens created using all of these tools that is used for cancer detection and personalized treatment. So the way it works is these systems automatically detect the organs and disease within the diagnostic image that the PET scan or the CAT scan or the MRI does, and then they apply AI to speed up at each step of the cancer detection and personalized treatment. Tim, Siemens is going to own the industrial metaverse if Roland Busch has his way about it.
Yeah, and let me point out there was one other announcement that came out of that keynote is they announced that they are doing a partnership with Sony to actually create their own headset. This is really an important move by Siemens. The other thing that I happened to look at the actual video of it because I couldn't go to the keynote, but after I'm listening to Roland Busch, their CEO, speak, I'm going, God, these guys are just so ahead of everybody else. It's just staggering. This guy and his company is just visionary in understanding the role that VR could play in their business model, the whole concept of the virtual world and spatial computing. But what I find fascinating is that he does not actually have the technology, the hardware that he needs at the moment. So he gone to Sony and is literally working with Sony to create the actual headset in a partnership that will do what he wants in his vision. Kudos to Siemens in a very big way for not only understanding the future, but working to deliver it. And in many ways, I see him kind of in the same context I see Tim Cook. Tim Cook has the same kind of a vision. And he's broadened it. He's not focused just on the industrial. He's focused on the bigger picture in the same context. So the new Vision Pro is more horizontal. But boy, a Sony focus with Siemens on the industrial. I mean, you're right. Not only in the sense of Siemens owning it, Sony and Siemens together could be a serious threat to Apple, because there's no question that the Apple headset's going to end up in enterprise and industrial as well. And this is the only headset concept anyway. And again, they only just showed a physical model. They haven't told us exactly what it is. But if Siemens is behind the functionality and then Sony has the technology to deliver that functionality, that's a powerhouse. And that's going to be really big.
On that front, it really is a part of that partnership that we talked about. But if we just close on my 25-year-old son, when he heard the concept of immersive engineering, he really didn't understand it. But when he saw that headset and he saw the few examples they demonstrated during that keynote, my goodness, he thought, I got a lot more to learn, Dad.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the case for a lot of us. And I would Google Siemens CES keynote. You'll actually get to see this video of his speech. It really is remarkable. Well, Barton, thank you for our time together today. It's been fascinating as usual. And now I know that I got to change my schedule for CES next year.
Another 22,000 steps a day, Tim?
Yeah, I'll tell you, my physical body had real issues with that. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us again today.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to Business Success in a Virtual World. Barton and I have helped global companies successfully develop and implement strategies to utilize these new technologies. For more information or to contact us, please visit ismguide.com and select Metaverse Resource Center. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform.